the death penalty, capital punishment, execution. These terms refer to one of the most controversial practices in human history. Today, we're exploring the arguments that have been made throughout history in favor of this practice, while also examining the counterarguments that challenge it. This is an educational look at both sides of a deeply complex moral question. Capital punishment is not a modern invention. It dates back to the earliest human civilizations. The Code of Hammurabi, created around 1750 BCE in ancient Babylon, prescribed death for 25 different crimes. Ancient Rome, Greece, and virtually every major civilization employed capital punishment as a cornerstone of their legal systems. Throughout the Middle Ages and into the Enlightenment, philosophers debated the moral foundations of punishment. Immanuel Kant, the influential German philosopher, argued that some crimes were so severe that only death could serve as a proportionate punishment. He believed this was a matter of moral justice, not revenge. The first major argument historically made in favor of capital punishment is deterrence. The theory suggests that the fear of death would prevent potential criminals from committing the most serious crimes. Cesare Beccaria, ironically an opponent of the death penalty, acknowledged in 1764 that many governments believed capital punishment served as the ultimate deterrent. The second argument is rooted in retributive justice. This ancient principle suggests that punishment should be proportionate to the crime. Supporters argue that for the most heinous crimes, premeditated murder, genocide, terrorism, only the ultimate punishment reflects the gravity of the offense. This isn't about revenge, they argue, but about moral balance and justice for victims. Third, proponents argue that capital punishment offers absolute protection to society. While life imprisonment exists, they point to rare cases of prisoners who escaped, were released due to legal technicalities, or committed murders while incarcerated. Execution, they argue, is the only guarantee that a dangerous criminal will never harm anyone again. Finally, supporters often mention closure for victims' families. Some family members of murder victims have testified that seeing justice carried out through execution helped them find peace and move forward with their lives. This argument emphasizes the human cost of violent crime and the needs of those left behind. Today, 55 countries retain the death penalty in law and practice. The United States maintains it in 27 states and at the federal level. China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Iraq account for the vast majority of executions worldwide. In democratic nations that retain it, capital punishment is typically reserved for the most extreme cases. Modern systems that employ capital punishment typically include extensive safeguards, automatic appeals, higher standards of proof, separate sentencing phases, and in the US, multiple levels of judicial review that can take decades. These procedures are designed to minimize the risk of executing an innocent person. However, objectivity requires us to examine the serious counterarguments that have led 144 countries to abolish the death penalty. These concerns have fundamentally changed how many societies view capital punishment. First, the risk of irreversible error. Since 1973, over 190 people have been exonerated from death row in the United States alone, people who were proven innocent after being sentenced to death. DNA evidence and improved forensic techniques have revealed that our justice system, despite its safeguards, can and does make fatal mistakes. Second, studies consistently show racial and economic disparities in death penalty cases. In the United States, defendants are more likely to receive death sentences when victims are white, and those who cannot afford private attorneys are disproportionately sentenced to death. This raises fundamental questions about equal justice under law. Third, the deterrence argument has been challenged by extensive research. The National Research Council concluded in 2012 that studies claiming the death penalty deters crime are fundamentally flawed. States without capital punishment actually have lower murder rates on average than states that retain it. If deterrence was the primary goal, the evidence suggests it doesn't work. Fourth, contrary to popular belief, capital cases cost taxpayers significantly more than life imprisonment due to lengthy appeals processes. Some estimates suggest 2 to 3 times more expensive. Finally, international human rights organizations argue that the death penalty violates the fundamental right to life and human dignity, representing a form of cruel and unusual punishment that modern societies should reject. So where does this leave us? The death penalty remains one of the most polarizing issues in criminal justice. Those who support it see it as necessary justice for the worst crimes. Those who oppose it view it as an irreversible, discriminatory practice that doesn't achieve its stated goals and violates human dignity. What's undeniable is the global trend. In 1977, only 16 countries had abolished the death penalty for all crimes. Today, that number is 112, with another 32 abolitionist in practice. Whether this trend continues depends on ongoing democratic debates, research, and evolving moral perspectives. This is a decision that affects the most fundamental questions of justice, morality, and the value of human life. Whatever your perspective, it's crucial to understand all sides of this debate, to engage with the evidence, and to think critically about what kind of justice system we want to have. What's your perspective? Share respectfully in the comments below. Subscribe for more educational content on complex topics.